Good morning, everybody. Thanks for participating and making yesterday a great example of this sort of member participation. I think the unconferences were amazing, as well as the talks that César has been curating. Just a few housekeeping things, and I'll hand it over to César. One thing that I got some feedback on is E15, which is the older building next door, on the third and fourth floor. The way that the space is laid out, you kind of get to some of the labs and it feels like the end, but actually there's a lot of stuff on the other side of that and really amazing work. And some of the students were saying that the flow that they traditionally get to their projects wasn't there. So make sure today, if you haven't been there, to go to the third and fourth floor on E15 and go see the stuff back there, because it's really, really great stuff. The other piece of housekeeping, this is not housekeeping, but just sort of to clarify, there is a unconference session that happens in parallel with a panel that we're having. And the panel is somewhat interesting. It's got Yochai Benkler and Chris Debona and me and Larry and JSB. But it will be recorded. You could watch it later, and we'll be streaming it. And there are some unconferences scheduled in parallel. So if you have unconferences scheduled in parallel and you don't have the confidence to attract the people, you can move it to something afterwards. If it's something that you want to do and it's scheduled and you can't move it, that's fine as well. Don't feel guilty if you're not in the session, but just there's a little bit of overlap in the schedule there. And then finally, it's Wada Kamfar, who's just until recently was the Director General of Al Jazeera. He's working on some really cool new stuff. He's a really amazing guy who can talk about the Arab Spring from a very on-the-ground perspective. He couldn't make it physically because he wasn't able to get a visa. He's got this funky problem with the American immigration. He's very good friends with America, the US, but it's some technical reason why they don't tell him until the last minute. So he couldn't get his visa. The good news is he is going to Skype in and will still be able to speak to us. And he hasn't done a lot of public speaking since he left Al Jazeera, so hopefully there'll be some interesting things. So I hope you stick around for that. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to César, the host of the conference, to talk about what's happening today.
Thanks, Joy. So it's a pleasure for me to introduce Nicholas Christakis. He's going to be our last keynote speaker. And I met Nicholas a few years ago, when I was at Dana-Farber, and he was starting to work on something that maybe many of you have heard of, about the contagious aspect of obesity and many other things. And I think Nicholas is one of these big thinkers, these people that actually has a big picture, and he has been able to get to that big picture from many different angles. When people think about health is something that people think that happens from the skin in. And Nicholas has been one of the people that has been showing that actually there is an aspect of health that goes from the skin out. He's a professor of sociology and a professor of medicine, so he's an MD and a PhD, and in two very different fields, and he has been able to connect them wonderfully in his research. Recently he has been exploring the connections not only between people, like the social connections, but also, how people connect to each other in genetic means. So he's mixing culture, medicine, and genetics. And it's a pleasure for me to introduce him, and he's going to be talking to us today about the evolutionary significance of human social networks. Thank you very much.